Or 100?
Yeah.
How did you fit 100 here, wouldn't
I
you?
think this was a guess.
Okay. You could do a conference there. If you had good food.
One track conference there. What's that? Oh, you get a like from me. What happens if I press it a lot? Do people see that now?
Actually, there was like this guy, the spitting brick
Yeah.
on YouTube, which hacks. Does hacks games and everything, and
Yeah, I know him.
he hacked the live stream on YouTube and he jumped to 2 million subscribers and 1.5.
Hello.
That's good money, I guess.
On live.
So we are live. All right.
Was asking everybody to open.
So welcome everybody. It's good to have you again. Some of you and some first time. So who is here first time? Yeah, cool. Some old people from Roche, I see. Old company, interesting company. All right. So we are here on our June, not March, just to be clear. First of all, we'd like to give thanks to our sponsors, M&S, BBVal, offering solutions for texture, and of course to our usual locations, iSolutions, Digital Galaxus, and Impact Hub Zurich. And next we will have to add here Swiss Life, because Swiss Life has hosted us for quite a while already. And our partners, Azure Zurich User Group, .NET Central User Group, NetDay Switzerland, and Swiss Angular as well. So, also, who are we? It's me, Laurent, Fabian, Paul, Mark Muller, Nigel. It would be great to see you sometime over here. And last time we added Damien. He's going to help. And today we are adding as well Stephen. Yeah. To help.
Thank you.
That's in the hope that they will help me with organizing the events, which at least Damien has, right? So, because alone is not that fun, but they have been there for a lot of time, so I think it's great to get them in the team and try to think and do some planning together. So, thank you for accepting the role. And we will have 2 sessions today. One is from bUnit with Love, how open source can help you. It will be delivered by Stephen Giesel. The other one is about looking back at 10 years of open source from a community contribution perspective with Damien. So, as the presentation was here, I don't know if you want to swap or you are good with Damien starting.
Yeah, I'll go for it. It's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Then, last but not least, there is something happening in August, 27th of August. I don't know if the tickets are already sold out, which usually happens, but there is .NET Day Switzerland, a full day dedicated to the community, for the community, happening in Arena Cinemas. It's an amazing event. I think they may still be willing to accept people helping. I'm usually taking 1 day off or going there and giving a hand if they don't accept me as a speaker, which usually they don't. And that's it. Stage is yours, Damien.
Go. So, thanks a million for coming. Just a bit about myself. This is a strange talk for me. Usually I focus on doing .NET, security talks, security consultant, anything Azure.
I don't see your... Oh, now I see it.
So usually I talk about security and .NET development and how to secure your web applications. And then today is a bit different. We're just going to say what I've done the last 10 years, why I changed, what things I've got more important for me, less important, and some advice. I think doing open source work is really good and it helps your career, it helps you as a person. But you need to do it right, I think. And there's little things I've learned along the way, which I think I'll just say, it's just my opinion, it means nothing. So it's type of just a talk, a chat. It's a bit weird for me. So, does everyone remember this? This was one of my most important tools when I started off developing. Without this website, I had to buy books. And if I didn't find it in a book on this website, I was really stuck. There was no other way of getting information. So, it's funny how this was the most important website for me a long time ago. If I need to find out how to do VB6 or C++ program at the time or hardware, I can nearly always find a solution there. And then almost all overnight, it just disappeared, which is weird. It's still there, but no one uses it. Who still uses this website? It has opened up lately. Oh, okay, so it's still alive.
Their newsletter is really good.
Yeah. So I haven't even read the newsletter lately, even like so. Maybe I'll read it now after your recommendation. I could just see it. And that's like, there's one of the things I've never done. I never tried to build up a profile on these type of websites because they come and go. It's really important that anything that's around today is going to be gone in 10 years probably anyway. So do you remember this one? Anyone still using this? So I mean, it's not dead yet, but it will probably happen the same way because now all the data and all the questions everything they're using is getting robbed and taken by AE. And now an awful lot of people, especially young ones, no longer go directly to Stack Overflow. They just use ChatGPT or whatever, which is taking the data from here as well. But how do they? This will also eventually disappear. I've noticed an awful lot of people using it less now. People don't put in answers as much. An awful lot of the information was put there 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There's less and less nuances coming in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I have no data to prove it. But I find myself using this less and less as well now lately. So my main source of real information is GitHub at the moment. So what about open OSS do I produce? So just roughly to explain what I make for the public, and then I'll just say some of the feedbacks, and then just explain what I recommend after. So I started off blogging over 10 years ago now. My first blog was about contained database. I thought that was so awesome at the time. And then I couldn't blog. I just said, okay, I put my ideas up there. And now I do regular blogs with security, but I don't actually have a fixed topic, what I blog about or what I write about. I use this as a type of a way of remembering things. So if I make something for a client or make something for myself, I always forget. So the way I can remember things, I just put it onto my blog, and then 6 months later or a year later, I say, oh, I did that so many ways, and I can just check my blog myself, and I'm like, that's how I did it. And then I can say, maybe it's out of date, or maybe it's not. But this is a really great way for me to remember what I did a year ago, 10 years ago. And some of the blogs I'm reading now is really silly, and this is what I was thinking at the time. That's normal. And some of the other ones are actually after 5 or 6 years, even 7 years, still really valid. So it's like, you know the Harry Potter movie where they take the brain thing out and they put it into the water, I don't know, the pensive or something. That's my way of looking at this. So anytime I write something, I just blog it, and then it gets copy-pasted and it eventually ends up all over the internet now, which is a good sign. It means that people are using it. So yeah, I think this is one of my main ways of putting it out, but I actually make it for myself more than I make it for other people. But other people have started using it now, so it's actually so many security blogs there now. I notice that actually now being used as recommended ways of implementing security now and stuff like that. So that's one of my main contributions. But I don't actually have any targets either. That's another thing. I don't care if I have nothing to write about, or I'm doing something else, I'm playing music, or it's hot, I'm going out, then I don't do blogs. So I don't have to say I have to produce one blog every month. I don't have any targets. So just say, if I have something I want to remember, then I blog. If I don't care. It's a hobby for me. It's not, I don't have to do it for any reason. This has got really big for me now. I do a load of GitHub. So anytime I make any code, I always just put up in the public, and there's loads of private stuff there as well I don't put up in public. This is where I put nearly all my contributions. So anytime I make a code, I have to test it. And this is really useful for me. This is where I can actually experiment, get feedback from other people, interact with the community. And I have loads of material on GitHub now, which actually is still very useful. This is actually the cool thing. A lot of it's not useful, but some of it actually is useful. Another thing is I have 2 NPM packages. This Angular package is really used a lot as well. It gets about 250,000 downloads a month. And this is where I learn actually most open source community work, because I have so many people making pull requests, so many people making comments, issues, things that's not working, and then you just do not have the time to answer them all. It's an awful lot of activity goes on this repo and this NPM package. And it's funny, is that nearly every second company I go to now visit us using this at the moment if they're programming Angular, which is really funny. And then you come in and say, I know that library, and it's cool, I can help you there. And it's actually really interesting, and it's moving away from this now. This is the way we used to do security maybe in the old days for web applications, and we're starting to move away from that now. But I still maintain it because you cannot migrate every application straight away to every new trend and new best practice. Over time, it's getting migrated, but people using it, I make sure that they're not getting stuck, that I'll maintain it for the next 5 or 6 years at least, and then eventually it will start dying out, I'm guessing. But I've learned so much open source from this because I think I have about 90, 100 contributors to the library itself, and then issues is, I don't know how many years, it's huge. So this takes up an awful lot of time as well. Then of course I have some smaller packages in NuGet. Anytime I have something useful, you can copy paste. I have about 3 million downloads here, but they're only small little packages, helper packages, nothing special there. But anytime I say, okay, this is a template I could use again, I just put up a NuGet and then I can download it myself and reuse it. So NuGet is a great way if you have something that you want to give back and let people use it inside Visual Studio or whatever Visual Studio Code. So to the 4 ways I contribute at the moment to the source. There's different platforms, different ways. You could use Bitbucket, I suppose, and GitLab, and I'm guessing they have public. It doesn't really matter which medium you have, but just try to use a medium which doesn't die. So make sure that you have the ownership. And then after that, it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you shouldn't have any quality hopes either. Just put it out there and other people will correct it for you anyway. So that's a good thing. You get loads of feedback. So come back to feedback. This is one of the main reasons, one of the nicest things about making open source. You get really great feedback an awful lot. So I thought this is great that this is people like have my repos open on my community work, or they have it always as stuff like helping them solve solutions. And then they say, this is so cool, thanks a million for making this. And this type of feedback really says, okay, I keep doing it, it's nice. Other really good feedback as well is when I'm trying to learn something new and I just do my experiments. Sometimes I make repositories and then I make a commit, and then someone else says to me, why did you do that? That makes no sense. You could have done it this way. And I says, thanks for the tip. And then you learn that and you fix it, and then you get fix it. And eventually you say, okay, this is actually something I could use in production. And that's where I learn so much from this constructive feedback. But I also get other types of feedback. This is another feedback I get. If you're in the public zone, you're going to get this type of feedback as well. So once you start making open source community work, or you start putting stuff out in the public, you have to expect feedback like this as well. Luckily, I don't get too much of it, but you do get these types of things as well, and you just have to just have to forget it. Does anyone see the mistake here, actually? There's a mistake here. They're not using HTTPS. Do you see that? It's an unsecure link they gave. But I just have to ignore it because you can't change it, and obviously this iContext didn't work for him, so maybe he should stop using WPF or something. I don't know what the problem was, but yeah, it's just, if you go public, you have to expect it, and you just have to ignore it. So when I'm giving feedback, I always recommend always be nice. You always have to think about there's a person on the other side of it, no matter what it is, no matter how big it is, even if it's Microsoft, I always try to be nice giving the feedback. And then if you're giving feedback in Switzerland, this is really important because everyone knows everyone in Switzerland. It's such a small community. So if you start being a troll and start being nasty to people, that's going to come back to you eventually. Everyone hears about everything. So I always say, if people are being nasty or giving negative feedback, being a bit aggressive, just avoid them. Don't even bother answering them. There's no point. I only try to give positive feedback on the internet. So if I see stuff that's really bad and really crap, which is pretty much loads of stuff, I actually never try to comment or give feedback on that. Now, if I know the person, they ask for feedback, then I try to give in a private channel to say, look, maybe you should try this and this and this, because I don't want to be putting them down on the internet. I think it's really great that they put something up on the internet anyway. So I just try to be positive always. Now, other people think constructive negative feedback is a good thing, and it is a good thing, and if the person on the other side would like that, then it's fine. But you have to be very careful giving negative feedback, I think. So I always try to avoid it, and I only give it in a private channel at the first. And if the people would like me to make it public or whatever, then no problem. So be very careful giving feedback that you remember that there's a person on the other side usually. Maybe not in the future, but at the moment it's still a person. So interactions is another major thing for me. How do I interact? So in Switzerland, these are the 5 user groups that I think everyone should try and visit once if you get the chance. I've done talks in all 5 of them. I know all the people running them now. Switzerland's tiny. the 5 user groups are really cool, every one of them. So this one you know, because the people here. The one in Basel is a really small one, but I think it's really good fun. So if you ever want to go visit Basel, it's a great place to go out as well. It's a super city. And then you can go to the .NET user group and spend the night there if you want. The one in Geneva is excellent. They're really nice people. You can do the talk in English. You don't have to do it in French, unless you want to. The user group in Lucerne is a really super one. And then I'm in Bern. I think the .NET user group in Bern is super. So if you have time, if you're visiting Switzerland, just try to visit the other user groups. They all know each other as well. And if you want to speak in them as well, they're really helpful and they're all really nice people. They're really very open to welcome new members. Same as this one. So I recommend going live to these events. I don't recommend going online because when I'm watching user groups online, then I can't help it. I'm watching something else on the other channel and I'm only part-time there. I'm not actually really at the event. That's why try to go live if you can. That's, I think, the most value. The little bits of chit-chats and the talks after. In Switzerland as well, there's 2 conferences I recommend for .NET developers. The one that I always mentioned before, the .NET Day is the most important, I think, tech conference. If you're a .NET developer, .NET architect, this is the one that actually you get the most technical information and the least amount of sales, or the least amount of marketing. So this is the one I recommend most. If you want to go somewhere and meet people, meet other people that think like us, learn technical stuff, get new ideas, the .NET Day is really good. It's the only one actually in Switzerland I recommend now for a .NET developer almost. And then if you're interested in Azure and stuff like that, the Azure Bootcamp Switzerland and Bern is a super event as well. I think that's really good. Both are organised by Manuel and Fabian helps with the other one as well. And then Stefan help with the Azure Bootcamp Bern. So these are the 2 conferences I try to never miss if possible. And I recommend everyone, if you're into these type of tech stacks, they're good. Now there's other JavaScript tech stacks, there are data tech stacks, and they all have maybe 1 or 2 good tech conferences. I always try to aim for the conference where it's actually technical based and really trying to give you information and not sales. And they change every couple of years. But these are the 2 I think are the best. Another interaction I do a lot is the social media. Now, I don't put any weight in this. I think social media is a waste of time. I avoid it as much as possible because if you're just going into social media given in time, that's wasting time where you could be thinking or doing something or learning something or figuring something out. And on social media, you're going to meet 1,000 people better than you doing something better, cool, or whatever you're doing. And you're only going to make yourself depressed if you go too much on social media. There's no point. This social media is all just gods. Yep.
I got quite interesting interactions in LinkedIn by publishing articles. I got in contact and I contacted with a lot of people and I got really interesting. So I did the last blogging myself, publishing articles, and I think that has, to me, it shows some value.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I actually have connections in it so people can contact me. That's the main thing. And second of all, anytime I make a blog or I have an interesting GitHub repo, I publish them on all the different social media platforms. And that's it. And then if I want to meet someone or talk, they contact me through a message or private channel. And they say, okay, we can meet up offline or we can meet up then or have a chat about it. That's the end of my usage of social media. Now, I don't have any job-related aspects to social media, so I don't need it. Maybe if it depends what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, of course. But I try to put as little amount of time as possible onto these platforms because you fall into the trap and you're using that and you're not actually doing something useful or constructive. And you're not actually talking to people on social media, you're talking to just your computer screen. It's not live. So I think just use it, but don't waste time on it. Really, it should be the minimal because the amount of content you gain, I don't see the profit from that actually. But maybe I'm wrong, it's just my thinking, of course. I try to avoid it as much as possible. So something where I do think it's really important is if you're on GitHub and you're actually helping, doing issues, doing comments or pull requests, same thing again, interactions with people like that, be nice, is really important. And then you have no obligation to answer. This is something I've learned the hard way. Because I'm getting so many issues with my different GitHub repos and people adding this and that in, I always felt the need that I have to answer. And after a while, if I'm only answering all these people getting the free consultant, I'll never get to the end of the day even. So it's just, okay, just suddenly realise I don't have to answer these people. I don't even know who's on the other side. And they're doing something in their job and they're struggling. I know they have problems. But then they can actually pay a company to show them how to do it as well. They don't have to get free consulting the whole time. of there's issues, stuff. If they're helping solve the problems, great. But I have no obligation to actually help them. I try to help now if I can, if I have the time, but that's my free time. My free time is really valuable, I think, for me. Pull requests are really important. If you're accepting pull requests into your repositories, don't squash merge the commits. And if you do squash merge the commits, make sure that the person who made the pull request gets the credit for it. Because that's one of the most horrible things you can do is you say, I want to keep a clean history, I want to make it beautiful, you squash merge it and you take their work, and then you see in the history of the commits is only the person who owns the repository and all the people that contributed are deleted. So what I'm actually in GitHub, I try to never squash merge, I try to leave the whole commit in there, unless of course some people are trying to make 100 commits to look good in the repo. Then I do a type of squash merge or don't merge or whatever. You know, there's 100 comments and you can see them as well. So I try to never actually make a beautiful history. If I'm in the private industry or pub, I always do the history. I like have it clean, and squash merges, do proper pull requests. How I do GitHub internet and how I do GitHub in a productive environment or for my enterprises is completely different. So try to keep the history, that's really important. And then of course, if someone does make a pull request, even if it's really crappy, say thank you anyway. Thanks a million is a great pull request. I'll look at it if I get time. And again, another really important thing is you do not need to merge it. Because there's so many people make a pull request, I want to add in this tool, I think this is brilliant. And I says, yeah, but I don't want to use that. Thanks a million, but I'm not going to merge it. You have to merge it. And then they try to make you feel bad about it. And after a while, it just says, yeah, go. You don't need to merge it. Thanks a million and leave it. And then usually I just leave it open, and then after a while, then I say, I'm going to close this. I'm not going to merge it. We've moved on.
They can always work.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Usually you have the discussion in the PR, right? So you can say, okay,
yeah.
I think that's not the right approach. So I had this for me, and that was really brilliant because,
yeah.
Oh, you should do that this other way. I think, oh yeah, you're right, I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
You explain, and that's usually fine.
But you see, it's all opinions. There's no one way of doing it that's the right way. And that's saying, I like doing it this way, and other people like doing it this way. They're both correct. But it's your repo, your effort, then do it the way you like, and then tell them, as you said, just make a fork and they can do it their own way then. It's out there in the public anyway. It's not yours. It belongs to whoever copy-pastes it. So what are the benefits for me? I call them side effects. I'm not actually doing any open source to gain the benefits. I'm just doing it because I like doing it. I love solving puzzles. So one of the main benefits I had so far is I got the M4P award. And through that, and then through all this work as well, I got to meet so many cool different people. So for me, the main benefit is actually meeting people, getting into the conversations, people that think like me, or they like to solve problems with .NET or Angular or React or Blazor or whatever you're using. I just love talking about that and learning about it and learning new things. And then through this type of work, I actually meet people that think like that, and then I get to meet them people as well. And they actually get to help me then and say, you know, you could improve there. I wouldn't recommend this way. Maybe you should do it this. This is, for me, one of the main benefits. I get to meet loads of cool people, and I get to learn loads. Because that's actually, at least my hobby, I like learning. If there's something new comes out, I always want to have a go and try and figure out how it works. It's like a puzzle. And of course, job profile, it's type of a side effect. This is a type of grey zone, because some people that do too much GitHub, maybe too much public, is saying, are you not doing any work during your daytime, or what do you do the whole day? People that are maybe big on the internet, maybe, or small on the internet, could be doing great jobs in the enterprise. You can't really measure anything through the job profile, but you can actually see what people do a bit and see what's going on. This is the way they code, this is the way they talk, this is the way they communicate. You can get a bit of a feeling, and people do look at it and see it. So it does help you, I think, but yeah, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on job profile, because when you go to a job, then you have to fit into the team as well. That's the main thing. So yeah, but it does help, I think. I say it's a side effect. This is my sponsor website. Sponsors are a weird place. I don't actually have any sponsorships, so I don't take any sponsorships. Other people do. My thinking of this is that I don't take any sponsors, because if I was to start taking money off people, I'd probably get a lot of sponsorship if I wanted it. People will start expecting things from me. And I always want to have this way, my GitHub, my blog, if I decide tomorrow that I'm going to stop blogging because I want to start learning how to play golf, or I want to start how to play music again, or I stop overnight, I have no commitment to this. I'm only doing it as long as I like it. And by taking sponsors, I see it as a way of connecting me. I have a bit of a responsibility. If someone starts paying me 100 francs a month for Repo X, the type of will be expecting that I answer their mails, or I'll answer their pull requests. And at the moment, if I don't feel like doing it, or if I don't want it, then I don't do it. It doesn't have to be that way, because sponsorship should be without commitment as well. There's different ways of feeling it. But we're also living in Switzerland here, and the couple of 100 francs you might earn in sponsorships a year, or maybe if you get lucky, you might get 10,000 off Microsoft or something if you have something really cool. It's not going to pay your wages in Switzerland. So I say that's beside. I've got a professional job I get paid for. This is a bit where I do the extra public for my bit, and it helps a bit. If I'm going to get money in, I do it through my company, and they can order me through my company, and then it's professional again, and they handle all the rates and stuff. So I don't bother with sponsorship. Now, other people do and have really good experiences with it and recommend it. That's fine, and it's just I don't bother using it. That's just because I don't want to put myself under any commitments for this either.
Do you have an example of people that do that, or products, open source projects that are doing that?
Successfully or doing it? Successfully, I actually haven't seen any, because every time you try to make money off a sponsorship to earn a living, to pay for your time that you put into it, it just doesn't pay back. You're going to have to use some type of commercial license eventually if you want to make it pay for you. And
That's what I heard.
That's what I think as well, but it depends where you're living, what money you need to survive, and then also what your expectations are. It can work, and there's definitely got to be some JavaScript libraries that actually does work, because the JavaScript community is way bigger, so you have more chance for that. But I don't know any examples where sponsorship has actually paid for the product. Maybe I'm wrong, or I just don't know. Maybe if someone knows it, you can tell me as well. I'd like to see it. But for me, if you want to make it money, you need to have a commercial license and maybe an open source license. And without commercial licenses or SLAs and everything organised, I don't see how you can actually make money off this. And eventually, if it's open source, Microsoft will probably copy paste if it's any good anyway, if it's to the .NET.
What a lot of folks are doing is just you build consultancy around
Yeah.
the open source product.
Yeah.
That's how a lot. Those who are successful, they do mainly that.
Consultancy work, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Enterprise licenses, obviously SLAs, or you just
Yeah.
really consultancy. It's like, hey, this is how you do it. I go into your company, I do this now, and you pay me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a good model as well.
Yeah.
And then your advertisement is your open source, and then you can hire them professional. Just like that. There's a few people as well doing that really good. But that's not through sponsorship then, it's still commercial license indirect. But that's actually what I type of do as well, but I do it through a company, so. So my recommendations. One of the first things I think is, I say success is bullshit. Never try to compete with other people, especially on the internet, because you're going to lose anyway, and you'll always be unhappy because there's always going to be someone way better. Just do what makes you happy, because this is your free time, or at least this is my free time, so I'm not going to put any effort into this if it's not making me happy. Why waste my time doing something that's just not enjoyable? At work, of course, I have to, because you have to get the termines, the appointments done, you're being paid for that, it's your job. And if it happens all the time at work, you can switch your job. But usually, when I have to do something painful, I don't like doing it, it has to be at least paid. With this, it's not a competition. I hate competitions in this type of way. I love competitions in other things, but not when I'm doing teamwork, community work. Anytime I find myself competing or trying to compete with other people, I say, no, stop, that's wrong. And on the internet and this type of stuff is not a competition. So I only do what I like doing, and I don't try to compete with people here. That's why I say, don't do stuff which does not make you feel good, because that's a waste of time again, and you don't have that much time in your life, especially in your free time. So if it doesn't make you feel good, why do you do it? Do you know what I mean? Just stop, do something else. That's what I recommend. It's a hobby and it's not your job. So I treat them completely different. I keep them separate as well. On my job, I've got a professional life. I do it the way that in my whatever contracts I have, I keep it really professional. In my hobby, I just do whatever I feel like. And they're not too far apart actually, but I try to keep them separate, and I do what I like doing in the hobby. Then another thing I say is I make it really easy to find me. So you know how I said I don't use social media? All my accounts are linked everywhere anyway. So if you go to LinkedIn or you go to B-Sky or you go to the other ones, whatever platforms you have, you'll find me linked to the other linked places. On my blog, you find me linked to my GitHub, you find the LinkedIn. Everywhere's linked together and it's easy to find me. So that's something I would recommend, that you link if you're doing open source, have your own blog, have your own GitHub, and then link them all together. This is something I say as well, always keep it separate from work. That's really important. I've seen an awful lot of people that start blogging off for the company, which is cool, and then they left the company and then they lost all the work. And they were not able to transfer because it actually belonged to the company. And if you're doing deals like that, maybe try to make your own blog or duplicate the blogs or link the blogs from the company. The company would profit anyway. If you're doing private blogging and then they know that you're working in the company because they can check your LinkedIn profile, they'll still come to you for jobs, they'll still use your company for it. The company still gets credit for that. It's still valuable for the company. But if you're blogging through the company or you're doing GitHub work through the company, it's paid work and it's not yours and you have to forget it. So I always say keep it separate because you're going to change jobs usually, especially if you're young, you should change jobs once or twice, otherwise you don't get the experience. Or if you can change inside a big company inside, then it's the same thing. But you need to get experience when you're young anyway. This is me as well, it's not a game. Competition, I hate competition. Don't make it a game. You're not competing with other people because once you start competing, you're going to lose and then you start fighting with trolls eventually or something goes wrong. I also just avoid the competitive part of it. This is my thing. Then to finish up, this is my favourite event, so I have to do more advertising with it, as I mentioned before. I'm going to be at this event this year and I recommend that everyone should go there. That's a .NET developer in Switzerland or if you're in the local area. I think this is my favourite event and I meet so many cool people and it's good food and it's a cool day and I recommend it. So I'm pushing it again. I think everyone should go to this if you're interested in .NET. And then to finish up, just want to say, just follow your dreams. Do what makes you feel good, and it doesn't have to be open source. It doesn't have to be GitHub. Just do whatever makes you feel good. Then you'll have fun. Cool. So really short, totally different. Okay. Good. I'm finished. It's much easier talking about security. Any questions? Sir?
Yes, I do. I love your point of view. I think the same. So I always thought that community is collaboration, right? Some people, it's competition, so I want to be first. And my first is what you said, so step away, right? And I had some interaction recently with the people on Semantic Kernel, which are having their own projects, so I collaborated with some PRs, and yeah, it's quite matching, so I really like your different points of view very, very, very much. One thing for me it's super cool is the power of engagement to meet people that are alike, that have the same tastes as you, and this interaction with people. When you met somebody, I mean, you for example, you like security, you like this topic, it's your passion, right? When you met somebody that thinks like you and you have some talk together, that motivates me to move it back. So this is something I would add to this, right? If you get together with like-minded people, so I started talking with a guy which is Arhad, which is from Australia, and we are thinking now organizing an event online, right, on Semantic Kernel. So it's and even with the product team as well.
Oh, cool.
So it's super. I think these kind of interactions are super motivating.
Yeah, sounds super. I think it's also cool. I learned so many people as well. You're doing something, and then someone from the product contacts you and asks him, "Can you help me do this? Can we do this together?" And then he said, "Oh, this is really cool." And then you start doing more. And so Microsoft has also reached out if you're doing a lot of their stuff as well. Like many people actually have a GitHub account that doing GitHub stuff.
Who has?
About 50%, huh? A bit more even. Cool. So this is something you should set up anyway. I think if you. It makes a good way of content. What about your own blog? Have most people your own blog? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. I don't know your blog. I'm going to check it out after. Cool. Like it. Yeah. Yeah. It's time consuming as well. So it's not something you have to do or should do. you can only do it if it's likes. I think it's cool doing it, and so GitHub is actually the thing I nearly everyone should have anyway, because nearly anytime I share code or interact with people outside my company, it's through GitHub now. So here's my repo, just download it, clone it, whatever. So nearly everything goes through GitHub at the moment, and maybe we'll switch over to Bitbucket again in 10 years, or we don't know what will happen, because this is one of these platforms that's going to come and go. Maybe it will never go. The whole world is actually on GitHub nearly now, I get the feeling. I don't know, what else is there than GitHub at the moment? Bitbucket is... How many people use Bitbucket here now? Atlassian chain, this is not many, huh? And GitLabs...
I had one, I don't know, I haven't used it for more than 5 years.
Okay. And the two platforms are brilliant. It's just that no one uses them. Or maybe people I don't know use them. That's maybe the problem. So that's why I just use GitHub. Okay, so you want a question? Yeah.
Do you use it for anything but code? Did you try to open source other things to see if there's something you can learn from it, or like music or?
Yeah, I have a few
parenting?
music things open sourced as well, but that was a long time. I did the music first, and then I went to coding, and now I'll probably go back to music again. Yeah.
One question concerning what you said about not blogging in the company's blog.
Yeah.
What about the other way around? When you learn something on your job
Yeah.
and you want to blog about it, did you have any first-hand or?
It should be no connection to your end client anyway, and then you have to have permission for your company, because you made that in the time when you're working for the company. But normally the companies are fine. You just talk to your boss, your company, make sure it's correct. And then it's really important that you don't actually put client information or stuff public, because it doesn't belong to you usually. It belongs to your company, or if you're working in a consulting company, it belongs to the company paying your company. So you have to be extremely correct about what you're allowed to use publicly and not. Now, usually if you just ask the end client of your company, can I use this? Most of them say, that's great, please do it. And then they link it to their blog or their company website. Hey, we have this cool employee doing this, and then you can link it. And then it's a win-win for everyone. But you have to do it correct, because you're employed by the company. So just make sure you're doing it correct. So I've never actually met a company which actually doesn't encourage users or employees to blog or make stuff for them. And if it's done anywhere else, they can still link it. They can get the marketing team to connect it. It's a win-win for everyone. But you have to do it correctly though, because usually as a Swiss person, we're employed and they own everything we do in our companies. So anything, even in your free time, a lot of times, I think it belongs to your company, a lot of stuff you do. I'm not sure. Most contracts are type of grey.
The software licensed by your company,
Yeah.
like your ID, and you do something else, you could have some
Yeah.
discussion around it.
But I've never seen actually many companies push it or complain about it. Be interesting what the legal correctness is there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, basically that's my experience as well. So I have a blog, and a lot of the time I write about stuff that that happens to me, that I see, that annoy me, or find interesting, whatever. But you have to do it correctly. So make sure you know all them. I don't know, down to the paths, for example, that you go, that every reference is changed to my company or my organization or whatever. Also be very careful in screenshots, because that can happen as well. But other than that, I never had an issue. Like 10 years or so now that I have a blog, I never had an issue with that.
Cool. On my side, I'm producing professionally content outside, but before starting that, as this is a professional activity that will bring me some benefit, I had to do it legally. So I had to ask my company, this case Swiss Life, hey, I'm going to do this course, I'm going to create this content, may I? And I will do this topic and this topic and this topic, and it has no competition. And they say, yes, you can. But obviously there was a contract or repo, and they had to accept it formally, but now it's on and I can do it.
No.
So usually is how it goes. And if that's not the structure in your company, I advise before jumping and getting done that of what you say, to get a lawyer and get it settled and clarified.
Yeah. But usually it's uncomplicated. You know your boss, you know your company. Normally, hopefully it's in a good connection. Otherwise you have to switch company.
In Switzerland, at least most of the time, even the verbal agreements
Yeah.
are
Yes.
Yeah.
legally sometimes bounding.
Yeah.
Well, if it helps, I talk it with my team lead before, right, Philip?
I'm not the legal person.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll take a break now. How long do you want to break? 5 minutes or
10 minutes.
5 minutes.
10 minutes, and then the Stephen will start after.
Still water, so.
Awesome.
Cool, thanks a million.
So we are going to do a pause. Can you try to talk?
I can try to talk.
Good. So,
Talk. Oh yeah, nice.
switching, transition.
Amos, hello. I'm speaking just for YouTube.
The reference wasn't lost.
It's presenting.
It is presenting. It does what it should do.
Yes. Let me go. Still got. Oh yeah. We are live again. So.
Go. Hi. So we're back. It took us only 20 minutes. Yeah, we have to clap you. Thank you. By Linux, then that wouldn't have happened. Or Windows, I don't know. But your Windows also didn't work, so the famous quote, just so you know, with Linux, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah, the same. Perfect. So class is sitting, perfect. The teacher starts. So we start with an exercise. I'm just kidding. We don't do this. It's way too late for that. This title is pretty much unrelated to what I'm talking about now. I thought that's a clever title, and that's why I chose it. There's nothing. I can show you bUnit. It's a Blazor unit testing library, but I want to talk more about open source in general and my experience with open source the last, I guess, 7 years. I did this. Short introduction to myself. Yes, and cute animation. I like Pikachus. Hi, I'm Steven. I am Microsoft MVP. I work for myself. I'm a freelancer. You can hire me, so you can do all kinds of shenanigans if you want, but you have to pay me. I am on LinkedIn. I'm unfortunately not on Twitter or X or whatever you call it nowadays. I'm also not on TikTok. Maybe, let's see. I like basil. I like pizza. I play piano, bad, but I play it. Enough. That's just a brief introduction. If you watch TED Talks, they always tell you should, transport some personal things to the audience, and that's what I did. Check mark. Okay, open source. Let's talk a bit about open source, and especially why is open source important. And we start with an exercise, because I really want to make an exercise today. One thing. I will show you some logos from products, libraries, frameworks, however you want to call it, and you raise your hands if either privately or in your company you are using that product. You can let your hand raised. It will not take too long. It will not die off and stuff. No, that will not happen. It's just a 20 seconds exercise. But I want that you raise your hands. YouTube, you can also do that. I unfortunately don't see it. If you're alone in the room, that looks super ridiculous, but hey, it's up to you. I will start now. So if you identify you're using such a product, please raise your hands. And we start with Alpine Linux. By the way, that's the default for Docker image for many. And then we have PostgreSQL, we have Serilog. You can really keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. If you once saw you use that thing, keep it up. Yeah, I know, it's very late. And depending on the amount of beer you had, yeah. So I guess almost everyone raised their hand at least once. All those products you see here, libraries or frameworks, or however you want to call them, there's no big company necessarily behind that. This is all open source. There are people, basically like you and me, maintaining that stuff. So, okay, we see that a lot of products, a lot of things in the enterprise world or in the private world are basically backed by open source. And yes, we're talking about open source, which means I have to bring that XKCD meme. That's super important. Everyone has to bring that. This is very important. It wouldn't be a talk about open source if I don't bring that meme. And this is somewhat true. A lot of things you see in the wild, and we will come to that in a second, are based on open source. Many big products you're using every day, your phone, even that presentation tool right now is built on open source. That you're here probably because you use the public transport app or whatnot, is using open source. So, well, seems very, very, very important. Who remembers log4shell? There are a few. What is log4shell? Well, there is a famous library called log4j. And log4j is Java. Thank you. You appreciated that joke. I'm just kidding. No. So yes, it is a Java package, and it's used for logging, and it is the default in many big frameworks. So arguably, if 80% of Java applications or enterprise Java applications will use Log4j in some version or another. So it seems very integral. By 2021, there was a big oopsie. The big oopsie was that you could execute code remotely. How did it work? Basically, you have to prepare a string. That string had to have a special form. That's now doesn't really matter. It is details. And then you could call an LDAP server. You could download some resource, and that resource will be executed on the machine of that application. Nice. So we have the execution context and the rights of whatever application you have. So if you prepare something for Amazon, you have Amazon the rights on their machines. If you're Alibaba, which is also using Java, you have the rights of whatever your running context is in. So what was the problem? Well, CVEs happen. They happen all the time. They happen also closed source, but oftentimes you don't notice that, which is not so great, to be honest. I don't want to talk about the CVE itself because while bad and obviously not great, they can happen. They will happen, and they happen everywhere. Azure had some big whoopsies the last months, and Microsoft went under big scrutiny because exactly of that. If I can take over other Azure accounts, that's not so great, to be honest, but hey, that happens. No, what I'm talking about here is the fact how companies or people in general handle such things. And this comes to the term of what is open source for someone. What happened is that, for example, I have two examples. Alibaba, which is a $35 billion company, at least in 2021, had, went basically to the maintainers, which are like 2 or 3 guys. No one is funding them back at 2021, and said like, hey, you have to fix that shit. Because we cannot go online if that thing is still in the wild. We need a hotfix, otherwise we cannot bring our servers online. And you could argue, okay, this is a company with how many billions, with I don't know how many people working for the company, and still, obviously, they didn't do anything for the library. Not financially wise, nor did they open any pull requests, nor did they contribute any issues. And the second thing what also happened to the exact same people, and this is even further below the civilization line, is they got threatened with lawsuits. So just imagine you have your open source project. By the way, this is Apache license. So Apache license gives you absolutely 0 warranty. So whatever you use in most of the open source libraries, you get no warranty. That's just how it is. And I would not, as me myself as an open source maintainer, I would never ever do this because, wow, there's so many countries, so many laws. I have no idea what's going to happen. Anywho, they are using Apache license. Apache license says no to warranty. You use it on your own risk. You can distribute it, you can modify it, it doesn't matter, but warranty isn't granted. Still, lawyers went to them and threatened them with lawsuits. Hey, fix that shit, otherwise you will go to court with you. And that's absolutely not great. So obviously, be a decent human being, don't do this. Never do this. Afterwards, they get some funding, by the way. Not great, but they got some funding. A few other noteworthy events, at least for me. I guess let's see who remembers 2014 and the Heartbleed incident. Yeah, a few. Basically, also a big clusterfuck in OpenSSH, and depending what you did, it was very easy to take over your server with the default configuration OpenSSL had at this time. So not great. By the way, also OpenSSL, I guess now it's part of the Apache Foundation, I think. But back at the time, it was just an open source project, so not really great. Another one, now we're coming to JavaScript. Who knows leftpad? One person? Okay, cool. Leftpad is a library which does just left padding of strings, so you can just say how, yeah. There's even an is even and is odd library in JavaScript, and people are using that. And I know I go off topic now, but my coolest project was where we had a dependency, or it was a peer dependency, where the JavaScript file was 0 bytes tall. So we had a dependency, or a dependency of a dependency, which linked the package with absolutely 0 content. So yeah, JavaScript, please fix that. Anyhow, what is leftpad? Leftpad comes from a user called Azer, or I don't know how to pronounce him, but a dude. And that dude has leftpad. Okay, what's the problem here? There's also a company called Kik, K-I-K. They wanted to create, or they had a messenger, and they wanted to create an open source package on NPM. The issue was that Azure, I don't know, sorry, already had a package named Kick. So they went into dispute. Obviously, the company Kick said like, hey, this is our legal trademark, this is our name, this is our product. We want to have that name reserved on NPM. The dude was like, fuck you, no, we will not do that. And he was very harsh. And what Kick, the company, then does is, okay, it went to his lawyers went to NPM, to the registry, and the registry said like, okay, yeah, fair enough, the company Kick wins. That's their trademark, they have it since ages. You're not allowed to have this reserved for you for a small open source project. And then he went a bit like a 6-year-old or 5-year-old, and he just deleted all his packages. And NPM allows you deleting packages. So from one day to another, you're basically a victim of a supply chain attack, because some small dude thought like, hey, I don't like how I was treated, therefore I delete all my stuff. Great, can happen. Well, not with .NET, because NuGet doesn't allow you to do that, for example. I think in Java and Maven it's the same, hopefully, because it's... nice.
But usually, for example, we have in the bank, we have our own repository.
Yeah, I also know that a lot of companies just make a Miro exactly for those cases, yeah. Then we already talked about Log4Shell 2021. Then let's come to the recent events. 2023. Who remembers mock, the cool library? Yeah, it was cool. Who's still using mock? Oh yeah, one person. Okay. You didn't want to switch to nsubstitute or nsubstitute. My man. Thank you. So here the same problem. What he did, well, not so great. Keizu is his name. I'm pretty, if he would be here in the room, I guess he would slap me in the face because I couldn't pronounce his name correctly. I'm really bad with that. Keizu, KZU, if you look for his GitHub handle, he has the mock library and he felt like, hey, it's unfair. Billions of users of downloads of my library, many big corporations are using it, and I get no dime, or not really much. So he was a bit like in this mental state of left pad dude, which was like, okay, I somehow have to monetize my open source library. And the way he did this is he created a source code generator, so you can hook into the pipeline in MS Build. And what he does is basically asking you for a donation. That's what he did. But the problem is with that, first, your build time will be increased because you make HTTP calls, which is in fact already pretty bad to make HTTP calls from your CI/CD pipeline. And also he went to some Azure or AWS service and just checked if you donated via the GitHub API. And the hash he used for the communication was very weak. It took minutes for people to find out what's going on. So basically also in Europe under GDPR, you would be pretty screwed if you would use that. The backlash was great at the time, but at the end what happened is the dude found some funding, and I guess they're still building mock. I'm just not using it anymore, but yeah, it is how it is. And the last one, before I go to a different part of our presentation or my presentation, is, who knows this one? Exact Utils also happened this year. Also open source, so all open source project. This is the cool thing. You can see this stuff live in the nature, live in action. Basically, there was, I would call a malicious actor with one GitHub handle who tried to install a backdoor over 3 years. And it was really well executed. At the end, there was just some Microsoft Postgres developer who thought like, hey, my SSH takes 0.5 seconds longer, the fuck is going on? And then he went through pull requests and found out, oh, someone is building up a backdoor since ages. That's how they found out. And pretty interesting to me, how they do this. So we can see open source is important. It's cool that this is so transparent. You can look this up every time. There are many other prominent examples. I just want to show those because I feel like they impact many, at least I know. So yeah, open source. Now, away from the negative side, I want to shift the picture a bit towards also what Damien already had, like benefits for you. Let's call it a bit like that. What are some benefits for you? Well, the obvious one is skill set. The more you work with code, the better you get, on average. There are outliers, and both directions. If you have the bell curve, there are people getting worse probably, people who are getting like phenomenally good. I don't know. But yeah, working in different code bases makes you better. That's just oftentimes like that. Another thing also Damien said, networking. If you part of some open source collaboration, project, whatsoever, it doesn't matter. It helps you. It helps you quite a lot. I also met a lot of cool people just because of open source. I'm here because of open source because I do a lot of this stuff in the open source space. The MVP title I have is thanks to open source because of one library. I guess Microsoft doesn't have a high bar anymore. They gave it to me, so, well. Anyhow, obviously it goes hand in hand a bit with the skill set. It can be good for your portfolio. I don't want to overemphasize this because I don't know how many recruiters you know and how many of them that really look on your GitHub profile. Probably not that many. Zero probably. You can use it probably to some extent. For me, it's also not the biggest point. The biggest point is really networking, followed by skills. But this is personal preference. Probably you can argue skills is more important for you. That's fine. The last thing I feel like is good, that also goes with my MVP title, is recognition. Obviously, it can bring you a lot of fame, so to speak, or jobs, gigs, because people are using your stuff. They know exactly you're expert in that matter. So why not? And I will show you later how you might want to join open source. But this is, take all what I say here with a grain of salt. This is just my perspective. Now, coming back or going away from the benefits for you or you yourself and go a bit higher, also like from an abstraction level, like companies. Who doesn't know the prisoner's dilemma? Or who knows the prisoner's dilemma? Okay, almost everyone. Okay, let's break this down really, really simple. What is the prisoner's dilemma? Okay, we make a modern version where instead of punishment, you get points or coins or whatever, you get plus points. There's no negative. Basically, you have two people, and those people could either cooperate or defect. If both cooperate together, they both get 3 points. Easy. If one of them defects but the other one cooperates, the one that defects gets 5 points, the other one gets absolutely nothing. And then you could argue there's also the last one, both cooperate together, then one of them gets only 1 point. And this is very, very famous, so this is played out through a lot of things. Even the whole Cold War was basically game theory for a lot of people, or they tried to find definitions for game theory and then used the Cold War, and especially the nuclear part of the Cold War, as kind of a prisoner's dilemma. If we would just see one game, only one game, so I pick one of you and we just play one time. What is the obvious strategy? The obvious strategy is always defecting. Because if you say I cooperate, well, you can win 3 points, yes, but it's more likely that the other one is defecting and therefore you will gain nothing and the other one gets 5 points. And with both defect, that's also fine because you get still points. So if you play just one round, the obvious and pragmatic choice is always defect, which would mean in real life, if we want to trade something, I always say, fuck it, I just take everything and you get nothing. That's basically how it is. Is life like that? No. It's rare that you only have one occasion where you do things. And open source is for me exactly that. So if you do open source, it's not like, okay, I have this one version of package which I will use throughout the whole lifetime of my software. No, that's not going to happen. It's basically a back and forth. And what they did, so in the late 80s, there was a tournament where you could basically hand in some strategies, and they played then 200 games, plus minus, against each other. And they were mainly through strategies. There were the nice ones, and then there were the ones who basically hold a grudge against you. The nice ones were basically, I try to cooperate as often as possible. It doesn't mean always, but as often as possible. And the ones with the grudge is basically, they always defect, or they try to defect as often as possible. And there were multiple times played this game, and the average line is that the nice ones always win. And that comes maybe to a surprise. The nice ones in this sense is you try to cooperate as much as possible. Again, it could mean if someone is not nice to you, you shouldn't be nice, but your starting point should always be cooperating. And this is exactly what this shows. So there were like, I guess, 16 or even 20 contestants. And what you can see in green are nice strategies. And what you can see, or what I dropped completely out of the picture, are red ones, which are basically the ones who are not so nice. They hold a grudge, they try to outsmart you. And this is obviously just a game, but we can see also in life that it oftentimes works like that. That if you cooperate, you probably would gain more than just, trying to fuck the other one over. Okay, so this is my pledge that I would say, hey, if you're in a company and you're using open source, there's a big benefit if you also support them. How you can support them, we can talk later. I have a small section about that. Now I would talk a bit about how can you get started? Because I got this question a few times now, how can I get started with open source? And this is obviously a personal bit. You can do whatever you want. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. Well, probably there's a wrong way, but there's no right way. So how can I get started? And I personally used open source libraries a lot, like every one of you does. And I found a bug. And what is the thing to do according to game theory? I go there and at least report that bug. If the bug is trivial enough, you can fix it, try it. If you have the time, obviously, you're not forced to do that. But I would argue, try to fix it if you think it is easy to do. And that's what I did. Basically, I started to just file some issues, file some smaller pull requests, which were most likely 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. And at some point, maybe smaller features I introduced, which just built on top, so I didn't have to refactor much of the code. It was okay that I only knew a small portion of the code. And at some point, that skill set, if you work long enough with one code base, it should be straightforward for you to dive in a bit deeper and make it better. A lot of, I don't know, Damien, how you do it. For example, we in bUnit, we have something called good first issue. So this is something we label explicitly and telling you, hey, if you really want to join us, if you really want to collaborate with us, grab those. You don't need much of knowledge. Obviously, ping us first. It's always a good idea if you want to contribute, if you want to help out. Just submitting codes is oftentimes wasteful. Why I'm telling that? Well, you don't know if they are already maybe working on that. You don't know if this is still valid. It's open source, and it doesn't mean necessarily everything is completely 100% maintained. So therefore, always try to go to the issue, try to ping one of the collaborators, or just write down, they normally answer, and ask them what's going on, and ask them, hey, can I submit a pull request, can I help out, can I do something? And oftentimes even documentation. No one likes to write documentation even though it's fucking important. So if you're willing and pick up documentation tasks, why not? And even if it's just a typo, so you can be listed in the README and the contributors. That's a good trick. So if you want to have widespread your name everywhere, good for Google search engine optimization, just try to find typos everywhere and fix them, like pull requests, I guess, and your GitHub handle will be everywhere. Okay, this is how you could start. Again, there are multiple ways to do that. It's up to you. That was my way, how I started a few years ago. And then at some point, I also started just creating libraries, a bit like Damien, that I had like ideas or blog posts, and I wanted to continue what I started there because I found like, hey, maybe people have a use for it. You never know. And if not, you just drop it. Then you have a dead repository. I mean, you don't pay for that space. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I talked a lot about open source. I talked a lot about the problems. And now comes a personal bit. So maybe some context. Originally in March, when we planned this, I guess we had like 20 to 30 minute slots. And then I noticed, okay, this is 40 minutes now. So I do now some improvised bit, but you can have some fresh basil. That's my pledge to you, get basil, and I talk a lot about other stuff. So should you donate or fund? That goes one or hand in hand what we heard earlier. It's really up to you. Donations, or let's start with donations, because funding goes more into this direction that you're obligated to do something, and this is if you get donations, this is less of obligation that you say like, hey, just because I donated and made this issue, therefore I have to fix. No, absolutely not. If you donate to someone, obviously that's free money you're giving out. I do think it's a great idea. I'm pro someone who would argue, hey, donate to a library, or your company could donate to a library. GitHub makes it pretty easy, by the way. You can see in your organization what packages are the most used ones. And you could argue, hey, do you have to support Angular? Well, probably not. They have enough money. You don't have to support them. React, probably also not, but that's your personal choice. But you have maybe a small library, and maybe that person needs help, or that person needs funding, and that is something I would start. And it also makes it easier for you to contribute. Just imagine you want to contribute to React or Next.js. I wouldn't know where to start. That's huge. I don't know, really. So the question is really, do you want to donate or not? And this is really up to you. I would argue, yes, it's a good idea, but it's a personal choice. I personally, as an open source maintainer, I prefer if people come and help out with issues, pull requests, or whatnot. Because while money is really nice, it's really cool, but time is you don't have it. It's not like you can spend time like that. So if someone comes in and helps out, you cannot imagine how much you will help an open source maintainer with that. It's really amazing. It's way better than any money you can get. Well, you get the idea. Okay. Should you do your own open source project, your open source software? I would say yes, why not? If you have the time, if you can spare some time of yourself, if you have some ideas, if you want to help out, I would absolutely go for it. Should you monetize it? Should you go in with the mindset that you get money? No, you will be disappointed in no time. It will be very hard, we heard it earlier, to really make money. It's better if you say like, hey, I want to build a product around that. I want to build consultancy around that, or some way of monetizing, but not directly on the product itself. For example, Redis is completely, for free, but still they make somehow money. You're not Redis, I do understand that, but this mindset. I wouldn't go in and it's like, oh yeah, people will fund me, people will give me money. That can happen, yes, but it's so unlikely. So you should not go in with a mindset of you get money. Another thing I found really, really cool, and now it gets a bit technical. I really like this feature, and I hope now it works. Is everything connected? You see nothing, huh? That is okay. That is okay. If I move this here, is this big enough? Can you see something? I can make it a bit bigger. One thing I really love as having many open source libraries my own is GitHub introduced it a few years ago called Dev Containers Code Spaces. What's the normal struggle everyone has if he joins a company? Onboarding. Who had a pleasant experience that he was onboarded in like 20 minutes? Can you raise your hand? Ooh, there. Oh yeah, okay. There are two people. That's a lot.
Well, I worked in IT support, so I had to set up myself. So.
Okay, fair enough. Was it automated?
No.
Good. That proves the point. That's good enough for me. I'll take that as a win. And one thing you can do, and this is pretty straightforward, is you can basically create code spaces. So you basically define a Docker image, you tell the image which software to pre-install, and so on and so on. I will just go here, and I have here this, GitHub gives those names. I did not use their name, just that you know. And the cool thing is like I press on this, and it opens up a code space. It's basically just really like a local machine. You can even set up the, does it work? Yeah. You can even set the machine size. So you can have a lot of cores if you want, but of course you have to pay. Obviously, they want to earn money. I will come to the pay part in a second. But it is quite okay-ish fast. I don't have the fastest machine right now. But what I do, the code doesn't really matter so much, and it's probably very crappy, so please don't look too much, is that I can now run all the tests if I want. If I see it here, here, is it here? You can run and debug, and it shows me a C#. It's currently loaded. Are you kidding me? So one thing, it takes a bit sometimes, and that's the issue, is I have a lot of things pre-installed. So basically, I automated the onboarding. And if I want, because this is also painful for people, is I can run tasks, and I have some predefined tasks. Let's say not test docs. Documentation, everyone loves documentation. Oh, yeah, you see the smiles on our faces. So yeah, let's go. So this is just your VS Code. You can also run it from VS Code. You can run it from Writer. I guess you can run it from Visual Studio. I'm not using Visual Studio. And as you can see, there's something running, and even my browser notifies me, hey, open your damn browser. There is a port open. And now I have the complete documentation of my library, and someone can just edit it. It's served. It doesn't matter. And you don't need any .NET. You don't need any tool installed. You do not even have to know what is installed. There's absolutely no need for that, because the dev container does that for you. And you can also use Visual Studio Code locally. You don't have to use that browser version. I'm just using it right now because it's convenient and it's cool to show. So what I am doing right now for the repositories I'm working with is basically offering code spaces. So whoever wants to submit a pull request, whoever wants to do something, I want to keep that burden as low as possible. The barrier should be absolutely zero if possible. And the cool thing is, if you have a GitHub account, you get 120 CPU hours. And this is exactly a nice unit, as all the nice units Azure is offering. What does it mean? Well, if you have a 2-core processor, it's basically you have 60 hours of compute time. It's not even compute time, I guess it's just on. Even if the CPU doesn't do anything, you have 60 hours. But 60 hours is a lot. With 60 hours, you can contribute without a problem. It's not enough for your day-to-day job, but just imagine you're working 60 hours for open source in a month. That would be quite a lot. You're busy over a week, so I doubt that you run out of that. So GitHub code spaces and dev containers, and I can also show you how this works. It's really, really simple. Is you basically have here a dev container file. Let's go here, source. Here's a dev container file. Let's open that. My internet is either slow or okay. And it's just a JSON file where you say, hey, it has a name. Doesn't matter really. You can select any Docker image you want. It has to be somewhere hosted, obviously. Then there's something called features. So we have your base Docker image, and you can just install features on top. For me, because my library is working in .NET 8 and .NET 9, for example, in bUnit, we are still supporting .NET Core 3.1. Yeah, I'm in dispute with my maintainer, but hey, we're supporting it because it doesn't cost us any money to do so or any time. We have a lot of versions here. So we have 3.1, 5.0, 6.0, 7.0, 8.0, and then the latest .NET 9 Preview 5, which dropped out 2 days ago. You can say which code extensions have to be installed from the get-go, because oftentimes you have a preference of stuff. I'm someone who writes everything in Markdown, so I need Markdown all in one. You have icons because they're beautiful. I like icons. I can obviously zoom in. I'm so sorry. Yes, it's very small. Let's make that 150 is a good. Let's make this a bit smaller. No, I don't want to move the ports. Oh, Jesus Christ. So. Exactly, so you can basically customize. The only customization I did is I configured VS Code so that you can just run VS Code. You have C# installed. You can just run it. There's 0 things you have to set up. 0. If you want to contribute, feel free. Spin up that thing and contribute. There are other things like post-create commands. Sometimes you need things. I can just show you. This is just a bash command where I just install this mkdocs. This is just to make our documentation working. And in .NET, oftentimes you need the dev certificates. So this is all I did. It took me like 5 minutes to set up everything. But if you want to contribute to one of my libraries, you don't have to do anything. You can, obviously. We have an onboarding guide, and both should be present, but you don't have to. And for me, this is a very, very nice way of enabling people. I had libraries like .NET itself where I wanted to contribute, and it's a pain in the ass to do that. And I just gave up some of their libraries because you have to install so much. You have to install Java for .NET. For the runtime, yes, you have to install Java. For some parts, they need Java. And I do not know why. This isn't I don't know for which part, because they have just a README with a lot of introduction, and Java is part of their onboarding guide. You also need Node. But maybe it could be, it's shared with ASP.NET Core and the runtime. It could be. I do not know. I just gave up because it didn't work locally. No
Silverlight.
Yes, Silverlight. So if you want to help out, if you create your own open source project, this is one way of helping people out. I think it's a cool way. And again, it doesn't cost much. Okay. Yeah, I also heard TED Talks, you always finish off with a strong quote. I love The Office. That quote makes absolutely no sense. I just wanted to put it in because I wanted to. It's my presentation. I'm allowed to do that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, basically a lot of information, almost zero information about bUnit. There was really just a red herring. It was just a smoke screen I used to lure you in here. Anyhow, I hope I could give you a bit of an introduction to some certain aspects of open source. Open source is big, and I guess if I ask all of you what open source is, I would argue I get different definitions of what open source for you is. Maybe one thing what it's not a liability. It's not like, okay, just because I have an open source project, I have to do something, and it goes also hand in hand with what Damien told you. If you don't want to, then just stop doing it. No one is forcing you. I can also promise you there's also this case, and we have this in bUnit a lot, because we have to release with the .NET cycles of Blazor, that you have this inner force or this inner, this feeling that you have to do something because .NET 9 is coming out, so your feature set should be on par with .NET 9. But this is something we do internally. No one tells us really to do that, and even if, what should they do? If they want, they can fork, but yeah, let's see how this plays out. Anyhow, that's basically all from my side. I maybe upload the presentation. I'm not sure if someone is interested in the presentation. Normally I do this. I have on my blog a talk section somewhere in About Me. It's very hidden. I can upload those, but I'm not sure if they would help you out a lot. Anyhow, thank you very much. That is all from my part. It was everything today. It was just everything today. Thank you very much. Cheers. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
How do you deal with the legal stuff? I mean, do you read all the licenses? Do you have a lawyer?
No, that is a good question. So I don't have a lawyer. I basically fall back to the same old MIT license all the time for almost every project. I'm not sure if it's copyleft, almost copyleft. So basically, I also give no warranty, but you're free to use whatever you want from my stuff. You can modify it. You should credit me or the organization or whatever I'm in this part, but you don't have to. So from a legal point of view, I have no obligations.
You could still break the law. I mean, like GDPR, you could easily break it by using.
That's true.
Something.
Yeah, that's true. And then I would be screwed, to be honest. Yes, so I'm no legal expert, and it's difficult because first you're in Switzerland, so GDPR is only partially applying here, I think. I'm not sure if the full.
Here, but to users.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, I mean that's the same thing. Like the mock dude, the Keizu, also basically experienced that. He started to violate GDPR because he just went to Azure in USA, where if you would be in Switzerland and in your CI/CD you're somehow handling sensitive data, well, you could be fined big time. That's true, but I have no lawyer, and if someone would come, I would be screwed, yes. That's simple. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so first of all, I actually use bUnit.
Ah, cool.
But not really actively because testing is...
Yeah, but who tests? I know.
It's really cool. So just thank you for the contribution. Just out of interest, how much time do you invest in, say, bUnit, because that's what you
So that's a good...
How much do you spend like a week working on it? And I mean, you're also probably doing your own freelancing gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually make money.
Exactly. It's difficult because it doesn't, pay you the bill at the end of the month. Yes, it pays a bit, so we get funding, but it's absolutely not enough to survive, basically. And what I do is basically when I went into freelancing, I decided for myself I only freelance 80%, and 20% goes into open source. Not always open source. There's something conferences and stuff, but. Yeah, so for example, every Friday I meet with Giesel, who's the other co-contributor or the maintainer of bUnit, and we sit together for 3 hours. So this is a fixed appointment we have literally every week. it's difficult because again, it doesn't pay you anything, but it's cool. So everyone has to decide for themselves. I could also work in this time and generate revenue for myself, but I decided at some point it's cooler to do that. It's fine if I don't earn that this day.
Has that been your like mantra for a while, or is that recently started because of the many projects that you
It started a while ago, but it became. I mean, earlier I had a 5-day week, 42 hours, and so it's a luxury to contribute to open source. I do understand, people have commitments. It's difficult to squeeze in a few hours, and it's difficult if you only have like 10 minutes and don't start. It's barely is useful. But I could find sometimes time for myself, and my former company also allowed to a certain degree that I can use my educational time budget for whatever I want. And partially I really use that for contributing to open source. And for me, the next step was, okay, fair enough. If I make myself now independent, if I work for myself, I will invest time in open source because I used it throughout my 11, 12 years career a lot. So why not giving back? Yeah. Any other question? Go ahead.
Should all software be open source in a perfect world?
Ooh. That's a very good question.
Photoshop, would it be better if it was open source?
If you want to have a binary answer, then yes, probably yes. And the reason for that is, time and time again, you will see the latest oopsie, like 2 days ago, Adobe Photoshop, which basically tells you now with their new terms and condition, hey, whatever you do in Photoshop, we are allowed to train your shit or our AI shit with it. And the funny part is, I'm not sure if you cancel or if you want to cancel your subscription, you have to accept the terms and condition. So cancel. So that's all. So to some extent, yes, I would argue that's a good thing. But we're not living in the ideal world, and I know people want to make money, and it's easier to make money with closed source products, absolutely. But then again, Linux is everywhere, and that was open source from the get-go. Yeah, it's difficult. In an ideal world, I would say yes, but probably it's cool that we have a mixed bag. It's difficult.
No, but would the software be better, you think, or would it just get messy and everybody?
That is also something. That's a very good point. So open source is not a democracy, and that is very, very important to understand. If you do open source, that's absolutely not a democracy. I also don't want to say it's a dictatorship, to some extent, but it's not like just you swoop in, you contribute a bit, that now you have equal voting rights. If you would have that, I do think it will get messy. You will always need a few people with a vision where you want to go to. What is your target, or the next increment, the next milestone, something close to the future. I don't think this will work with a lot of people and they have equal voting rights. And this is a big, let's say, advantage of closed source, that this is from the get-go absolutely clear. If you're a firm believer of Scrum, I will not say if this is good or not, this is up to you. Or safe, this is shit. I don't like safe, that's my opinion. No, I'm just kidding. But for example, if you have a product manager or a product owner, you know exactly where it's going to. And that's a good thing. And that oftentimes you have in closed source. That's missing in open source. Not always. There are examples where you have people doing that, but yeah. For example, I know a few people of the Uno platform, the ones who are doing basically something like Maui, but they did this like 6-7 years ago. And they, for example, have really product owners. They have basically also milestones. They have a roadmap where they want to go to. So it works also in open source, but they build really a company around that open source product. So yeah, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that people would learn from it. People would find new ideas if they could see how other things were made. In general, it would be better.
Yep. I mean,
there would be problems, but
yeah.
I mean, that's always the case.
The cool thing is, at least in recent years, also Microsoft is going more and more open source. I mean, .NET. Sorry?
It's starting to move the direction a bit as well.
Yeah, from time to time they do things, I don't know. So every 2 or 3 years Microsoft has an idea you really think, no, why? And also in the .NET space where they basically hot reload, say like, well, no, that's a cool feature, but you have to buy Visual Studio. Give us money.
Use community for that too.
Yeah, but the idea was like, you cannot use the console or you cannot use VS Code for .NET Watch on hot reload. They wanted to make this a Visual Studio exclusive feature to promote their own IDE. Windows recall, I mean, I'm not sure what the fuck that is. Sorry for swearing, YouTube, we get demonetized, I know, I'm sorry, I pay you that.
Rewind the same feature.
Does it have that now? Really?
No, but I think recall is actually actively analyzing your
Storing
Rewind is doing the same.
Oh.
Yeah. But you have to install.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Woo!
But we did exactly the same thing with the new iOS 17.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly the same things. But since it's done by Apple, it's cool. Since it's done by Apple,
I guess only
exactly the same thing.
they are.
Screenshot of your phone.
They are. I think the only upside Apple had until now is that for some apparent reason, Apple was always more in favor of data privacy. At least it was like the public opinion. I'm not sure why this is, because I'm not even sure if this is true. But I feel like people think like, oh, Google, yes, of course, Google is grabbing my data, Microsoft is grabbing my data, but Apple, no, Apple will never ever do. Of course, Apple is doing that, absolutely. But yeah, I don't know why they.
Apple doesn't share.
Only for money. Now they have they announced their own private cloud, which is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean with that, because at the end it goes to some server, which is probably not Apple.
Some strong authentication between the phone and the server, so it's not a classic API communication. But what happened on the side, even if they depict it like, oh no, but we don't save any data, we just take it, we put it in RAM, and then we give you back. Well, honestly, most of the software doesn't necessarily go to a database and save your data.
Yeah.
So technically, also ChatGPT does the same. On the paper, we don't know exactly what happens.
Yeah.
With your data, but technically, you make a call, you get the answer, and that's it. So I don't see anything. But that's Apple. So
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I'm no expert, especially related in AI questions. I would give the word to Jose if he wants to.
I only know a few things.
I want a few things.
In the AI these days, whoever tells you I'm an expert is a
I read yesterday the cool title of senior prompt engineer. That was quick. Senior prompt engineer. That 2 years, yeah.
most curiosity. Coming from what happened to Linux a few months ago, we know that the fact that a Microsoft employee catched a backdoor that someone tried to exploit. How do you handle that in open source? I mean, of course, we're talking about Linux, so a very complicated and huge code base, not a small library that more or less anybody can understand the code. But really, this was a high risk. I mean, open source or something like that, where we're not talking about a small library which has the same impact. I mean, I'm just imagining someone hacking Newtonsoft. What could happen? Okay, maybe now is not.
Yeah.
But I mean, with many people contributing, with such complicated, such a lot of people pushing PR, how can open source protect himself from someone want to hijack and put some malicious code in a huge code base?
Yeah.
Is there
The simple answer, in my opinion, is you can't. Make TDD, then everything is better with clean architecture. No, I'm just kidding. But
Martin did something in a clever way, but I cannot believe nobody reviewed the code.
I mean, he was the code review. He basically was the sole reviewer and maintainer. So
Yeah.
he basically approved his own approval.
From Korean, Korean and Russian hire
Something like
people to
that.
actually do that.
So the question is, like in Linux, how many things like that we have we don't know about?
Yeah, exactly. You don't know. The only positive part you can take away from that is that you at least could find this. If you just have a closed source kernel, you have to reverse engineer to find anything.
No, yeah, of course. I'm not saying that closed code,
Yeah.
closed source is better. I'm saying that this was found by chance, not because someone.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I almost promise you that there are occurrences where this is.
Is that malicious code would become an official release, was probably able to hijack all the Linux.
It was also a social engineering hack. The
Yeah,
guy was working for years.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was really planned.
Super smart. It was not really
So-
planned everything.
This can happen to any company. You hire somebody, and then for years they work perfectly, and then they have the
Well, of course, it can happen to any company. I mean,
So, gentlemen, I think this is maybe a good spot for drinking a beer or eating some warm food, which we have outside.
Woo!
We ended up a bit later, so they are kept in warm. So once we finish the stream, we will go out. But I think we have one last question for Steven.
The obligation problem, you take sponsorship and stuff. How do you handle that? Do you feel an obligation to fix issues when people are paid sponsored, or because they're not paid sponsors, they're donations?
Yeah.
How do you handle that? Because you feel like you want to do quality anyway as a person, I guess.
So especially in bUnit, we are in a sweet spot here. We get money, but the money we get is for advertisement. So my contributor decided, hey, Telerik, we just put this icon there and we get money each month. So that's one thing. There was never an incident where someone donated us money and then demanded to fix something. We never had this. And probably I also would push back. I mean, what should they do? I have no obligation. Obviously, you are biased in favor of doing such things because they did this, but this is very unconscious bias. So I can't give you an answer right now. Obviously, I'm telling you, yeah, no, I would push this back, and then at the end, I will fix this shit. So it's difficult to say. But my stance would be, just because someone donated me, and not really funded me, but donated me, there's no obligation. There was never an obligation, and there will be no. And there's also no obligation that just because you found a bug and that maybe hinders you in your code, that I fix that now on the spot. There isn't. That license basically warrants absolutely nothing. Anyway, obviously you have a user base and you want to satisfy them to a certain extent. So yes, you will fix that at some point, but the question is always like, is it important to fix? Well, with bugs, I always argue I would fix them rather sooner than later anyway. So it's nice if they pay me for that. But for feature requests, yeah, it depends. Yeah, it's difficult to say. Again, if someone puts you a lot of money down there, probably. But that's very unlikely that this happens, so works for me. Did you ever come? Did you ever come to the conclusion, or when was your point where you said, "I don't take funding"? Was it from the get-go, or was there an incident where you said, like, "Hey, okay, that's why I don't do it"?
I just never went into it. I just
Okay.
avoid it because it's not going to pay my wages anyway. I don't want to get like this feeling where I have to start fixing things. If people give me money, I think, okay, I want to give them service back.
Yeah.
It's just my personal thing. So give and get. Even if they make an issue, I try to fix it anyway for them. It's just that I don't feel obliged to do it.
Yeah.
But I do fix it. I don't want to. The user base is important.
Yeah. Yeah, for us it's good if you donate, for example, if you have server costs, if you have certificate costs, stuff like that. So it's nice if, from now and then someone pays a bit, and then basically at least you have a break even, you're zero. So it's fine. We take sponsorships. Yeah, but that's, again, personal choice. Good question. Don't know. Good. Thank you very much. Let's call it a day.
I will go out and food. So